I'm very nervous, as you know. Public speaking is everything. Well, you know, you're on the radio every day. Yeah, but I'm in a little tiny room talking to myself. So I got to tell you, this unnerves me, and I'm really glad that they're serving drinks, because I realize that I can only talk to groups of people when they're on something. So drink up, everybody. I decided that I was going to talk to you about what we believe as peace activists, as Democrats, as progressives. It does matter what kind of a Democrat you are, as Congressman Carnes can clearly tell you. Progressive Democrats are gaining steam, gaining power, gaining control. Nancy Skinner is running for Congress as a progressive Democrat. And I love her, and I hope you'll give her your support. I want to just say that after any disaster, an attack like 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, a tsunami in Asia, a nation is in collective shock. And a president who views this period of shock to privatize the economy or expand his personal power is no better than the oligarchs in Russia, the princelings in China, or the piranhas in Chile. And that's what's happened to us. We've been taken advantage of in a moment of vulnerability. And so I just thought that maybe we should refresh ourselves and just know what we believe has always been right. And what we believe is that our elected leaders ought to have been elected. We also believe that they should be neighbors and soldiers and police officers, union members, school teachers, single working moms, straight, gay, black, white, American Indian, Arab American, and first generation Americans. In other words, we think the House of Representatives ought to look like America. We believe in a strong defense, but not offense. We believe a peace dividend is worth more than the war profits for defense contractors and multinational corporations. We believe that taking profit in a time of war is illegal. We believe that war is hell on earth, and that the earth cannot take much more war. We believe in diplomacy. We believe in spreading democracy by example. We do not believe that we can settle our disputes with nations who have never attacked us or our allies by bombing the shit out of them and naming the bombing shock and awe. We believe that preemptive war is un-American. We believe that neither the president nor any member of the executive branch can declare anybody an enemy combatant and disappear them. We believe that people should never disappear in America or when they're in American custody, and that when the government disappears a person, they have committed a crime punishable by life in prison. We believe that terrorists should be charged and tried in federal court. We believe that propaganda by a president or a vice president inside the United States is illegal. We believe that torture and humiliation, degradation, and forced nudity can never be legally ordered by the U.S. government. We believe that the Supreme Court of the United States was correct when they rightly decided that shocking the conscience of a POW is torture. We believe that private contractors should not be interrogating POWs. We believe that the Red Cross should have access to all POWs in a time of war. We believe Iraq is not a war, but an occupation of an unarmed nation, and therefore there is no Iraqi who may be considered a POW. Anyone terrorizing the people of the United States will be guilty of yelling fire in a crowded theater. We believe that all private companies should be prohibited from owning the machinery of war. They should never be allowed to have training bases for paramilitary personnel. They should never be allowed to own tanks, bombers, surveillance blimps, and paramilitary equipment. It should never belong to a corporation and never paid for with our tax dollars. We believe in secure borders and ports, and we believe the best defense to terrorism is intelligence gathering and professional law enforcement, not acts of aggression. We believe Americans are capable of assembling a professional, well-paid, and well-supplied border enforcement department with a court system dedicated to hearing these cases and administering swift remedies, and that is how to protect our borders. Every container coming into this country should be inspected first when loaded abroad, destined for America, and then again when offloaded in an American port. Chemical plants, nuclear power plants should be protected by Americans dutifully and not the United Arab Emirates. We believe in effective crime prevention, which starts with ending poverty, the leading cause of crime. The President of the United States is not a venture capitalist. He may not use our tax dollars as seed money for privatizing intelligence, healthcare, supply lines for our soldiers, police or firefighters, interrogation or security for government officials. The military is not in service to corporations. Corporations are not the military. We believe in freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom from poverty, and most of all, freedom from war. We believe that corporations are not people. If they were, they would get colonoscopies and mammograms. Corporations must be regulated. They cannot say whatever they want to say about their products. They cannot claim state secrets privileges. They have a higher standard of truth-telling if they wish to sell anything to the American people. Corporations cannot promote religion or proselytize. Corporations may not monopolize a marketplace. Corporations may not own the majority of the media. The public airwaves belong to the public. And the FCC must get back in the business of holding the licenses of corporations that do not serve their communities in which they wish to broadcast. If a media company wishes to brand its product as news, the standards of sound journalistic principles must apply. Facts must be checked and verified. Stories must be true and reliable. Journalists must have a degree in journalism. Otherwise, it is someone's opinion and must be branded as opinion. Corporations may not exploit labor. They must be prosecuted for hiring illegal workers. Workers must be given a safe working environment and a decent living wage for their occupation. Oversight of workplaces must never be done by a person who previously lobbied or advocated for that company or industry. Oversight offices must be headed up by career professionals and not political appointees. Patronage must end and cronyism must surely end. Corporations may not have a mail drop in the Cayman Islands, where they do not serve the Cayman Islands. We believe in a fair tax code, not a tax code that favors billionaire hedge fund managers by offering them a 15% tax rate, while the breadwinner of a family of 4 making $60,000 is taxed at 30%. We believe all tax loopholes must be closed and that a company that sells primarily to Americans, or a majority of their customers being American, must hire the same proportion of American workers. We believe that disaster relief comes first when people are dying. Nothing gets debated, passed, or voted on in Congress until everyone is safe and accounted for. Corporations who can help must help. There shall be no profit-taking after a disaster, either when man-made or the act of nature. If the president asks us to give up our freedom because this is the only way to keep us safe, something is wrong. We believe in all of our civil rights, including counting votes by hand. Canada can do it, we can do it. Voting machines do not work, but at the very least, if we use them, they must not belong to any corporation. Machines should be donated if used. Virus scans must be done, as well as debugging before each election. However, your vote is sacred and private and deserves to be counted by hand. We believe that health care is a constitutional right to be enjoyed by all Americans because the purpose of government is to promote the general welfare of the people. There's no other reason to have a government except to promote the general welfare of the people. Therefore, health care is a civil right. We believe that our planet is a living thing that needs to be nurtured and loved, and we believe that science is not a myth or a theory, and it is not too sciencey to teach our children. We believe that teaching to a test is not teaching to children. We are literally teaching corporately supplied materials to our children and killing our children's ability to do critical thinking, which is needed now more than ever. We believe our teachers are courageous and professional. We believe they should make no less than $40,000 a year in any location. Private schools should never be a replacement for public schools. In New Orleans, there were 126 public schools before Katrina. Today, there are 4. We believe that civil unions are to be encouraged, and any couple that can live together every day and still be civil deserve everything this country has to offer. Promoting family values means promoting families that look like yours and families that don't. Supporting same-sex couples is not the same as supporting polygamy or man-on-dog sex. Polygamy and man-on-dog sex is a choice, being gay is not. We believe that love trumps hate, and that hate is not a family value unless you are the Manson family, the Bin Laden family, or the Bush family. A unitary executive is a fancy way of saying dictator. We believe in the separation of powers. There are 3 co-equal branches of government. None of them shall pick the President of the United States. The states shall pick their electors in any manner that they choose. Hopefully they choose free and fair elections. The people of the states elect their representatives in the House and Senate. That is how America works. We believe that a federal prosecutor who is forbidden from investigating stolen elections and fired for not investigating free and fair elections, when the president's party does not like who won, is an impeachable act and shall be treated as a high crime. We believe that no man is above the law, no man is beneath the law, and no man is the law. We believe there's no such thing as a signing statement that allows a president to ignore the laws passed by Congress and signed by the president. We believe there is no such thing as a warrantless search and seizure, and that warrantless search and seizure can never happen under our Constitution. Those things do not exist in a true democracy. We believe our consent is necessary to govern. We believe that a president who doesn't pay attention to polling or read newspapers is not paying attention to the people of this country or the world. We believe in progress. Progress in schools, health, environment, and the enabling of prosperity and hope. These are examples of a strong democracy. Democracy should work for everyone who participates and even those who don't. Democracy can only be spread by works, not words. We believe in accountability for all persons holding public office. We believe it's an awesome duty of the legislative branch to conduct oversight over the executive branch. We believe that if there is even the slightest question on an issue of lying about intelligence for the purpose of war, or scaring the American people about acts of terrorism, missing tax dollars, or treason, or by any member of any branch of government, hearings shall begin. We believe that the people are the government and that Congress is their representation. The people will be paid attention to. We believe that state secrets is not a reason for the judiciary branch to walk away from investigating high crimes and misdemeanors. We do not believe in anything called retroactive immunity. We do not believe that immunity may be given for the sole purpose of short-circuiting civil lawsuits. Here's what the Democrats want from the Democratic Party members. We think that a Democratic Party should listen to the people. We believe that the House of Representatives is the people's house and that they are there to do the people's business. Currently, the people of the United States want hearings to determine if the Vice President shall be impeached. We will make sure that this is done if we have to call, email, and stand outside the majority party's office all day, every day until election day. We believe that if the leaders of the Democratic Party cannot accomplish a simple task of convening hearings on the unconstitutional behavior of this vice president who has less than a 10% approval rating, then we, the people, demand an honest answer to the question, why not? If somebody has been threatened, if somebody has been blackmailed or otherwise manipulated to believe something other than that, we must know so that we can help. And we will help. Democrats are not easily shocked by private behavior. Bill Clinton enjoyed a 68% approval rating on the day of his impeachment. Democrats can take bad news and we can give it the proper weight it deserves. No Democratic member of Congress who is trying to arrange for hearings is on their own or alone. We are here. Congress must take testimony from conservatives and libertarian and independent constitutional scholars on the question of unconstitutional acts by the Vice President immediately. Congress must hold hearings and show the Vice President on various television shows and radio shows which jog the people's memories. Congress must show and play audio of the Vice President lying to Congress, lying to the American people, and by proxy to the world and the United Nations. Congress must investigate claims that the United Nations Security Council offices were bugged in the run-up to war. Congress must expose any information it has about false intelligence gathered through the torture of an innocent man rendered to Egypt, or based on the words of a known drunk who was deemed to be an incredible Iraqi defector, as well as the disgraced Ahmed Chalabi. If Congress needs help putting together an audio-visual presentation for the American people in the 21st century, I am available. If the leadership of the Democratic Party is threatening or thinks that chairmanships that were finally achieved for our best members through their own hard work and years of pure patience, then we will change the leadership. We will fundraise, we will organize, we will inform the American people that Democratic Party leadership is more concerned with politics than justice, national security, and this is evidenced by the almost, I can time it on my watch, holiday terror threat and war making of the Vice President currently. Congress must investigate the outing of Valerie Plame. Special Prosecutor Patrick Fitzgerald could not complete his investigation because of the obstruction and perjury of Scooter Libby. At the very least, we would like to know why Ms. Plame was denied a security detail at her home after her name was made public. She had 2 4-year-old twins at home at the time. In addition, I would say finally, but you never expect me to say finally or in conclusion, so I won't shock you. The Bush administration has corrupted the judicial branch by purging prosecutors and smearing their hard-won reputations for fairness in the administration of justice. Surely the Democratic Party cannot be doing the same to its own members. The people will not tolerate it. Impeachment hearings must begin immediately. That House Resolution 333 put forward by Dennis Kucinich went to the Judiciary Committee because of the arrogance and gamesmanship of the leadership of the Republican Party. But Democrats should seize this moment and explain to the American people that the Republicans voted for this inquiry. The Democratic Party has an obligation to speak to the American people immediately and show them that the vote on the House floor on one of the most important questions that the House will ever consider, the impeachment of a vice president, was greeted by the Republicans with arrogance and gamesmanship. This is a story that must be told. The Democrats are on very high ground on that vote. The American people don't know it, the media didn't show it, and they say C-SPAN isn't exciting. The media has not covered this story. The Democratic Party has an obligation to tell the American people about the complete disrespect of the Republican Party on that day. On such an important question, it could mean the difference between justice and criminal behavior being addressed. And the Republican Party thought it was funny. Playing a cat and mouse game with something as important as the impeachment of the vice president should be greeted with immediate hearings and the taking of testimony of conservative legal scholars like Bruce Fein, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States under Ronald Reagan, John Dean of the Nixon administration, and of course Jonathan Turley, a constitutional scholar at George Washington University, who all agree with us progressives that the president and the vice president ought to be impeached. The Vice President of the United States says he has to work in the shadows. He has to work on the dark side. He had no doubt that Saddam Hussein had reconstituted his nuclear program. The Vice President, while standing in the Royal Palace in Bahrain, declared, "We know that Saddam has chemical and biological weapons." The Vice President must be called to present his intelligence and cite his sources. There can be no harm done, since the harm has been done to the covert operative in charge of worldwide affairs on nuclear proliferation issues, and her work and her brass plate operation has already been destroyed. The Senate should begin in earnest an investigation into who sent anthrax to Senator Daschle, Senator Leahy, and the news media. The man who died of an anthrax attack in West Palm Beach was literally in the building next to mine. Begin with them, and perhaps you'll find your way to indict members of this administration with ordering massive spying on its own citizenry, as well as hacking into congressional Democratic members' computers. We know that the president has been wiretapping and copying all the communications of and by the American people in what was not a warrantless wiretap, but a country tap of all emails, web searches, and telephone conversations. Names are currently being added to something called a terror watch list that had 16 names on it on 9/11 and now has upwards of 800,000 names on it. Why? I'm scared to tell this part. Chatter was at an all-time high the summer of September 11th. Airplanes made U-turns all over the eastern seaboard for more than 2 hours without being intercepted by NORAD fighters. The president, knowing that a passenger plane full of innocent people had crashed into a New York City landmark office building on a clear Tuesday, September morning, decided to go ahead with his previously scheduled photo op in a second-grade classroom in Sarasota, Florida, instead of reacting. And yet we are fed a steady diet of the ticking time bomb scenario and the need to get information right now to prevent a nuclear holocaust in minutes or sometimes seconds. But the president stayed in that classroom, even while a second aircraft crashed into the second tower of that same landmark office building. The person who we've been told did this to us, one Osama bin Laden, has never been caught or killed, and the president says he doesn't know where he is and he doesn't spend much time on him. That is an abdication of the president's oath to protect and defend against all enemies. In the wake of that, we find that the vice president doesn't belong to the executive branch. Nor does he work for the legislative branch. And yet, he has access to the executive branch's Air Force Two, has top security clearances, and answers to no one, apparently. Congress should stop funding the executive offices of the vice president immediately. The president has appointed cronies to every single oversight office in the government, from the CDC to Consumer Affairs to FEMA. He's done this to render the government useless in the protection and recovery of the American people in a time of crisis, whether it be man-made or natural. Their desire has always been the same: to make government so ineffective and so non-functioning that they could drown it in a bathtub. That is why the President of the United States picks horse lawyers to head up the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The administration should definitely be charged, or at least called to defend itself, on a charge of taking us to war on made-up stories gotten through the torture of a man known as Al Libby, who was buried alive in a 20 by 20 wooden box for 17 hours and still could not provide any information regarding the link between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. So then he was beaten for 5 days until he made a story up. A story we now know was false. The president and the vice president should be charged with failing to protect us from all enemies by telling the people he does not spend time looking for Osama bin Laden. The administration should be removed for repeatedly shocking the conscience of the American people with a multitude of false terror threats. Making us afraid of plastic bags is un-American. Making us afraid of shampoo and mouthwash is un-American. Making us afraid to be in a shopping mall every Thanksgiving is not American. Making us afraid of ferries and poison pen guns and balsa wood airplanes that could come here and spray us is not American. The president wants us to be fearful because in fear we look for a strong leader to protect us. And what we say is we will give up everything in order to be safe. You do not have to give up anything in order to be safe when the President of the United States is the President of the United States and not the President or the CEO of a giant, globalized, private economy. President and the Vice President are constantly creating illusions of a nuclear ticking time bomb scenario in cities and insinuating that we are all in peril all the time from cows, from terrorists, from all these silly little things. And yet, we have an unhinged Pakistan right now who aids and abets Al-Qaeda members, and the brutal Taliban has suspended its constitution, arrested political enemies of the dictator Musharraf, shut down the media, pulled out the telephone lines, and sides with extremists while assuring us that the nuclear arsenal is in good hands. The president's response to aiding and abetting this regime was that Musharraf should take off his uniform. He should change his clothes. That's advice you give to me. The president waited 5 days to call Musharraf. 5 days of the chaos that began there with our president doing and saying nothing to prevent it. In fact, taking a careless attitude throughout. Why? Why would the president be careless and absent in the presence of a nuclear nation falling into the hands of the most extreme faction of a very moderate Pakistan? Pakistan is now one of the most dangerous places on earth for the United States, for our national security. Diplomacy and every effort to redirect funds to the moderate people of Pakistan should be made immediately. Aid for weapons such as P3s and F-16s to Musharraf should end immediately. The government does not exist only for the national security of the nation and its people. The security of an inhabitable planet is also the most important issue we will face today. In the 21st century, the new technology can actually create a booming economy for everyone. We can make cars that are the envy of the world all over again and grow the fuel to fuel them right here in Michigan. Nancy Skinner is one of the leaders on that particular topic. We don't need a corporate, private, closed economy. We need an open, free economy available to all the people all the time. The government exists for the general welfare of the people. The people are not enjoying a sense of well-being, but the people are coming. Thank you for coming here.